You want to make your stories more vivid. You want to display your world to your public. You want to make them more participative. Here are 6 ways to make your stories more vivid through participation. The first path to vividness is the path of the atmosphere. Now, by creating an atmosphere, you want to engage the public's senses. You want to engage the character's senses. You want to engage your senses. Senses engagement, olfactive engagement, visual engagement, kinesthetic engagement will involve your characters, your public, and yourself more into your world. Once you are involved, all other character in the story, and the public is a character here, can be involved. But once you're involved, you want to create more interactions. You want to create more possibilities for the public and for the character to play through your world, to search, to discover, to try, to fail. Once interactions have been established, you want to go through the 4th path, the path of deepening, the path of development, the path of empathy. Empathy will be discovered through the character's behavior, through the character's action, and namely the paradoxes which exist in these behaviors, these actions, these different reactions to different options. Now these outcomes are determined. Now these outcomes are displayed. You want to engage one last time your public with your story by giving her a purpose. The first path to a vivid story is the path of the atmosphere. Now, the atmosphere will involve 2 things. You have to create a climate, which will generally be represented by colors. Everything in your colors visually should represent the atmosphere of your story, from the introduction to the epilogue. In fact, using the same color or a similar color in the introduction, in the epilogue, is highly recommended because you create a sense of resonance between your first and your last chapter. You create a cyclical tale. The other aspect of atmosphere is the creation of sensory usefulness. The fact that you use your senses, the fact that you imply that your characters use their senses, will associate with the public directly. The public will want to use their senses if they see that it's necessary. So if your atmosphere is established through both colors and senses, it will be more complete. Now, last note on what's an atmosphere. The atmosphere is not just the climate, it's not just the color, it's not just the senses, it's not just the inhabitants, it's not just the environment. It's the synthesis of these 5 elements. If you're able to create a balance between colors, individuals, environment, senses, and climate, you'll create an atmosphere. Now for the colors. Try to make use of vivid colors. You want to make use of these colors because you want to involve the sense of sight. You want your elements, your territories, your constructions, your civilizations, your cities, your inhabitants, your species to be visually clear. So you'll make use of visual contrast in forms and in colors. Same for hearing. Each of these elements, each of these inhabitants, each of these part of the construct of the world will make sounds. And sounds are byproducts. Sounds are byproducts of the object which it originates. Now, sight and hearing are the 2 most common sense when it comes to involvement. Now, 3 other 2 are less used. Now, remember, you can go up to 10 different senses, but now we'll focus on these 5. So when you've established your colors properly, so in the sight it's clear. In the hearing, it's clear. You want to involve kinesthesia. Now, through kinesthesia, you will involve the public's and the character's sense of touch, but not only, because kinesthesia here involves the position of your character in an environment. The kinesthetic here sense of exploration involves that your character will be able to recognize an environment because they've already visited it. Kinesthesia here is the most sustainable senses when it comes to creating memories. Now, kinesthesia will be here directly linked to the sense of touch because it's the closest sense to what kinesthesia is, but also the sense of taste and the sense of smell. For a matter of proximity, you can see things from afar, you can hear things from afar, but you can't feel them, you can't touch them, taste them, or smell them from afar. So that's why we create two categories here: sight and hearing from a distance. Kinesthesia, taste, smell, touch, it's from up close. So play with these two. Establish a rhythm in your descriptions and in your dialogue this way, by admitting that you have senses that you can use from afar and senses you can use from close only. The second path to a vivid story is the path of involvement. Now, involvement is the core of your strategy here. Involvement is what will create attachment between your public and your characters, and therefore between your public and your story. Now, if you want to create involvement, you have to create a certain degree of attraction or revulsion. Attraction for your characters, attraction for your environment, revulsion for your characters, revulsion for your environments. The very fact that you want to create both attraction and revulsion in the same story is a matter of balance, as of everything else. Balance between familiar and surprising, balance between comfort and crisis, balance between fast and slow. The attraction here, attraction factor, and the same applies to revulsion, is created with the character, through the character's issues, through the character's problems, through the crisis. It is there that when you develop your character's issues, that develop your character's problem, that the public can start to see the character's strengths and weaknesses. That's where the character's behavior traits become visible. And when the character's behavior traits become visible, their behavior becomes visible, and a part of their identity becomes visible, allowing for more engagement. Now, we will cycle that back. Engagement will create some extra involvement, and then from involvement you get back to attraction or revulsion for a new character, for issues. All that is will be developed in more detail in the path of empathy. Now, if it's for just involvement, what defines involvement here? Involvement will be defined through its mirror, meaning engagement. Now, what makes involvement peculiar from all the other paths? You have to understand that involvement is meant to be used as a spark. So wherever you're choosing one of the other 5 parts, and if you're not sure how to go through these, start with the path of involvement. If, for example, you're writing 6 different stories, or you're writing 6 different chapters in the same book, start with the path of involvement. Start with a quick action. Start with a quick reaction. Start with a quick attraction or revulsion, and then in later chapters, in later books, maybe in later movies, go for the path of empathy and characters' issues, or any other path really, because involvement will split in all the other 5 paths, in all the other 5 ways. It is a spark. It is where you can begin if you're not sure where to begin. The third path to a more vivid story is the path of interaction. Here, interaction essentially involves finding clues. Clues? Objects, elements which would be present or which would be missing. Where? In the environment mostly. You want to place elements in your environment in a way that your character can make use of this environmental display to create the story, or recreate or modify the context of the story according to their interpretation. Now, how does it apply? Let's say that you're creating a room. In this room, depending on the room's affectation, depending on the room's function, you'll need to have certain objects. Imagine a kitchen without any cooking instances. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work because this is the main role of a kitchen. Same for a living room. Most people imagine a living room with at least one piece of furniture for sitting. Imagine a living room without any armchair, chair, or sofa. What's the story of this room? Why are all these pieces missing? Why are all these essential pieces missing? Now, let's suppose that we're adding something else. Let's suppose that in the kitchen, you have a fridge. Wouldn't be unusual to find a fridge in the kitchen. But now, what's in the fridge? If there are no utensils, if there is nothing to work, to cook, what would be in the fridge? Well, you can guess. There'll be ready-to-eat meals. There'll be maybe the protagonist, the character, which is using this kitchen, which is owning this kitchen, and therefore this house or apartment, is receiving meals from a company, from an house company, which is delivering meals, and they're ready to eat. Now, if they're not, how is she supposed to cook them? Same goes for a living room, same goes for a bedroom without a bed, or with a bed which factors a number of individuals which are not in the room, in the house. Maybe it's a king-size bed, and the apartment or house is only inhabited by one person. Okay, means that what person is missing? Why is this person missing? Environmental storytelling is key to interaction. And it will often be your best bet when it comes to creating a more vivid, more interactive story. Now, you can do it through dialogues as well. Now, because you want to compare these three dimensions, dialogue, environment, and behavior all the time, you want that in your dialogue, be aware that your character is talking to another character and that this other character is not telling her something, or is telling her something that seems incongruous. Now, the incongruity coming from the piece of information which is not supposed to be there is the same incongruity that you'll find if a certain piece of furniture, a certain element is present in a room where it shouldn't, or missing. Same logic. Now, dialogue gives you information on the character's behavior and vice versa. The behavior of a character will tell you that if you were you as the author, but also you as the public. So, because always position yourself as the author and as the public. If you were to talk to this character that you're interacting with right now, what would you ask them? What would you ask them in order to decrypt her behavior? Because now every character acts in the context of her environment. But what if something is missing in the environment? Would you directly ask the character? You know that at some point certain questions are ill-advised. You know that you wouldn't ask these questions. But what if you would? How would the character respond, in fact, for you? Would she be defensive? Would she be in denial? Would she be prevalently truthful because you're the first person who is asking that question that's difficult to ask? Now, if you want to create more interaction, synthesis is go through environmental storytelling. Create a location, in this location place or displace objects, then allow characters to interact through dialogues, and all that would be missing in dialogue, or all that would be present but which will be strange in the dialogue, should be read through the behavior. Interaction is looking for clues. The fourth path to a more vivid story is the path of empathy. Now, related directly to interaction and involvement, empathy is created through context. Now, context is the frame and the genre combined. Once you've established the genre of your story, once you've established the frame of your story, you create a context. You also create a context through the character's action, through the character's interactions, through the character's behavior. All this frame the context. Now, if your main character, which will be embodied by your reader, therefore your public, is looking for information, she'll look for information in the actions of the character. She'll be looking for information in the behavior of the character, looking for paradoxes. Now, paradoxes are a way to display thematic contrast. You want to make use of contrast in order to put the attention of the reader on a specific element, on a specific piece of information. Here, paradoxes, because at this point, the reader is involved, because you always start with the path of involvement. The reader, as she is involved, the public, as she is involved, is looking to correct these paradoxes, because as she's involved in the story, she wants the best for the story. She wants the best for the characters. That's what involvement means here. And through the development of her empathy into involvement, so both generate each other, she'll want to create an ideal context for the characters. So she'll want to correct incorrect behaviors, incorrect actions, everything that's, according to her, incorrect for the story. The fifth path to a more vivid story is the path of paradoxes. Now, following the path of empathy, once your public is involved enough, once your public is attached enough to your story, she will look for paradoxes and for synergies. But even before your public is involved enough in your story, she can still look for paradoxes alone. Now, the relationship between paradoxes and synergies may be more difficult to develop and may take more time and therefore may take more emotional attachment. But finding paradoxes is easy. It's fast. Once your reader, your public, is involved, even to a minimum level, to your story, she'll want to correct mistakes. If mistakes are made, she'll want to participate by correcting these mistakes. Now, this involvement will be suscited by you through the means of ellipses. If a certain element seems to be missing, if there's something to fill, it will have to be filled, and the public will gladly fill it. Wherever it is to just get to the action, get to the stakes, get to the point of the scene or of the chapter. Sometimes it will be also to suggest you something better. The public will want to fill your story in order to reach a certain degree of fulfillment. Now, this criticism, this type of criticism, these different types of criticism, because you have different type of publics, will be expressed through different perspectives. Now, if you want more information on the different kind of public, on how they deliver feedback and why these feedback are delivered differently and why you should welcome these different feedback and make use of them, especially if they're expressed in a usable manner, check out the link in the description and the card in the video. We'll put links to 2 videos telling you the different type of public and how feedback can be used in this different kind of type. Now, so let's suppose you have 12 kinds of readers. You have 12 kinds of public, or more directly, you give your book to 12 people and they give you 12 different kinds of criticism. That's brilliant. That's the best outcome you will want. Because if they give you 12 different points to criticize, and really 12 different points, it can be 12 different characters, it can be 6 different characters with 2 different points on each of these 6 different characters. It can be your 4 main characters, then 4 of your main environments, and then the way you display your 4 main thematics. If you can have as many type of criticism as possible, it's always the best outcomes. It's an outcome you will want to look for, because it means there are different kind of public for your book. It means there are different kinds of publics for your story, for your movie, for your game. So ellipses are the tool you're using ellipses. So directly, you're not putting information so that people criticize your book, and because they criticize your book in different manner, you know, first and foremost, what you should maybe do better in your next stories, or what you should do differently at least. And then it gives them the ability to become a part of your story through paradoxes and then synergy. Through ellipses, you create involvement, because now your public can be directly a part of your story. The 6th path to a more vivid story is the path of purpose. Now, purpose involves emotional attachment. Emotional attachment takes time. You want your public to participate through your story as early as the story begins. So much like the relationship between paradoxes and involvement, the timely relationship, the fast reaction you want to suscitate from your public, the fast involvement. You want your public to be able to participate since the first chapter. Now, participating, what does it mean? It means asking for the right questions in order to get to the right answers. Now, in the absolute, it's nothing as rigid as that. But in the short term, in the very short term, as your public starts your book, they'll start as rigid because you will start to expose new ideas to them. Now, when you yourself are exposed to new ideas, there's a certain degree of rigidity, of resistance against these new ideas, which is why you want to go through games, you want to go through interactions, you want to involve the public through different kind of researches, searching for clues for the environment, for the dialogues, through the behaviors. Now, participation here will be all of that. It will be interacting with your characters, with your element, with your public, with very multiple parts of it's the multiple parts of what makes your story interact with each other. The characters interact with the public interact with the different other fringes of the public. These different fringes interact with your story, and the story interacts with your character. And there's you. All that will be achieved through the tool of completion. If there is a problem, if there is an issue, especially what looks like a problem in terms of cohesion, in terms of coherence, in terms of consistency, the public will want to feel it. Just like the character will want to. If there's a problem in your world, your characters will want to solve it. Well, in the same way, your public will want to solve this problem. As soon as your public has started to attach themselves to your characters, they'll want to help them They want to participate to your story through assistance. They want to help your characters. They want to help your story to unfold. They want to help you. And that's where they get to the depth of the purpose. And that's where you get to the end goal of participation. The purpose of the public is to be a part of the story. Now remember, as you're producing content, your content emerges from your public. If you like this video and want more of this type of content, check our video on the 6 surefire ways to create a story.